Welcome back, everybody. We are pleased to continue the fourth chapter. We're holding the original text on page Ayin Tes, Ukishem She'em Bichelis, which is 6 lines from the bottom of the page. You can see it in the corresponding English text. As we mentioned time and again, particularly emphasize when we begin in the middle of a chapter to see what the Alter Rebbe's message over here in this chapter. It's literally a click away if you go to the original website of the Tanya of this class, which is tanyaonline.com, one word, and you can see the previous classes. What's the Alter Rebbe establishing Perek Dalet, a very fundamental Perek, coming to answer a very important question which he left off in Perek Gimel. Basically, if everything is the Dvar Hashem, every creation is namely why it exists now is because Hashem is infusing His energy into that which makes it exist totally, meaning to say, not the Eibishter is allowing it or maintaining this maintenance to this creation that He created so many thousands of years ago, but He's right now creating it. And if Hashem would not infuse that energy, it's the same energy which He created it in the first place, which then it was, we saw clearly, it was very evident that it was mi'ayin liyesh ex nihilo. It was the world. Before the world was created, there was nothing, kipshute mamash, and then Hashem brought it into being with the energy which, as we noted over here in Perek Aleph, as well in Beis, that it's a specific energy which creates every single created being. Every single creation, the reason why it functions that way, looks that way, it appears that way, meaning that the whole makeup of this creation is because there's a specific chayis, specific life stream which is flowing into it, coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the Asara Memoris. Again, just encapsulating very briefly this which Alter Rebbe expanded on in the first and second chapter, which, as we mentioned again, also click away, you see it all comes up. We mentioned this as well. It all comes up with the text on a separate scroll bar, easy to follow the class on the same Tanya Online. It's tanyaonline.com. It's lined up on the left side of the website, so you can see all these classes as we relatively recent Shaykh. We began Shaykh B'Emunah after concluding Likutei Amarim, which was also on the same website, which is the gateway into oneness and faith, the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Emunah and faith. So this is, again, a very fundamental segment. We spoke about this also in the beginning, and this is just like a whole new, kind of maybe perhaps for many, a paradigm shift, how they look at Elam Hazeh, when we say the words of Mechadish B'Tovi B'Chol Yom Tovim Masvejis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revitalizes creation every single day, every single moment, every single second. Hashem is infusing that same energy which, again, it was a particular energy which established that very created being with its style, its appearance, its function, and so on. We gave the example which we're using time and again, Evan. The reason why the Evan stone looks like that is because there is in one of the inanimate creations, is because there's an energy coming from Hashem, the Asara Memoris, the saints, 10 sayings, which Hashem created the world with the 10 sayings. Basar Mamoris Nivra Ha'elam, because with the 10 sayings, the world was created. Hashem spoke creation into being, and every nivra, every particular nivra, has its energy coming from the Lashon HaKodesh and that particular form and configuration. And in this case, Aleph, Beis, Nun, the Aleph before the Beis before the Nun. There's an energy coming with that creates. That's the reason why the stone looks like the stone. An inanimate creation, tough, stiff, hard, and so on, powerful. So to say it's a solid stone. All of that, and the details is the reason why it appears like that. Again, just adding this, just to appreciate again, just very briefly, this Alter Rebbe writes in Perek Aleph, is because exactly there's that exact configuration of energy which coming from the word Evan, which is anchored in Asar Mamoris. You don't find the word Evan in Asar Mamoris, but Alter Rebbe already explained the different interchanging of words, gematrias, numerical values which exist within every single word, and so on and so forth. So And this didn't only happen the first time Hashem created it, again, ex nihilo, from nothing to something, but every moment, Hashem every moment Hashem is bringing it into existence, not maintenance, but to total existence. So what is it really? It's really the Dvar Hashem. It's really the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Alter Rebbe asks, this is Alter Rebbe kind of culminates. Alter Rebbe importantly gave another mashal. We're not going to go into it now. Beautiful mashal in Peri Gimel, very important, a vital example, or an example which is vital to appreciate the nothingness of creation in the face of the Dvar Hashem, the total nothingness of creation in the face of the Dvar Hashem, which is the real chayis, which Hashem is Mahava Mechayim Mekayim, is giving life and existence to every part of creation. And again, as such, the bittul, the inherent self-nullification which exists within every single nivra, towards its shadish, towards its source, which is the Dvar Hashem. And as such, so the Alter Rebbe points this out so clearly. And that's why in the end of the Peri Gimel he asks this obvious question. So why do we see the object, creation, the way it appears, focusing on that same stone? Why do you see a stone? Why don't you see the Dvar Hashem? If it's everything about the stone is really the Dvar Hashem, the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem pulls back now, the stone will not only break apart, but it'll disappear totally. So why do we see the stone the way we see the stone, and not the Dvar Hashem and everything else? It was the tree, it's the stone, it's the blade of grass. It's all about the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why do we see it? Why does it appear so so clearly and so evidently the way it is, as opposed to the way it truly is meant to appear, because it truly is the Dvar Hashem? Why do we see it? Why does it appear so real? Why does Elam Haza appear so real? Every part of Elam Haza. If it's in the end of the day, it's just the Dvar Hashem, which is Mahava Mechayim Mekayim. It's only the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which gives them. That's the sole reason why it's there. I say sole reason again. Alter Rebbe later, and we spoke about this contrast to certain ideas that the neshama to the guf, it makes it function, but it's not like when the neshama leaves the body right away disappears. Eventually it decays one way or another. It's interesting, these great tzaddikim, which it was evident based on certain circumstances that their body didn't. But again, it's a separate subject. But the idea is that it didn't just disappear, because the neshama, the guf, has a separate backup besides the neshama, in other words, which makes it function, but not its sole energy, as opposed to everything else in creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Mahava Mechayim Mekayim, it's its sole energy. There's nothing else. So why does the stone look like the stone? Why don't we see the Dvar Hashem? Basically, again, in a nutshell, this with Alter Rebbe ended off in Peri Gimel, and then we started Peri Dalet, and Alter Rebbe says, yes, it's also a midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, we took the time and to explain as we got till Ukeshem. And it's really not fair to repeat, because it's truly a click away. But what we did leave off, and again, the message is that this is part of the, so to say, system of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is part of the program, if you will, that Hashem would cover up. It's another midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, Kishem Mogen Hashem Elikim. It's the same God with two expressions, Hashem. It's two names of the same Hashem. So one of the names is Hashem and one is Elikim. One is Chesed, one is Gvura. One is Gadol, one is Giber. They're both coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, we explained it because it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's easy to work on unraveling and revealing the truth of Eilam, the emes Hashem la'Eilam, because it's not from a different energy is obscuring the emes. It's a part of Hashem's name. It's one of Hashem's names, one of Hashem's expressions. We mentioned the difference of somebody locked up in a cell, that other forces would confine him, lock them up, and that's one way of someone being in a cell. Or somebody, we gave the example, someone in his important exam the next day takes his books. The individual would take all their material and go into the room, lock themselves up for 6 hours, because they need that seclusion in order to appreciate, to bring clarity in all in the material which they're going to be examined the next day. So they're both in the same cell, but in the end of the day, there's no sense of true confinement in the latter case because they put themselves in there. So yes, it's locked up. The door is locked in 6 consecutive hours. But could you compare? Can't compare because this is something which the person did. They locked themselves up for a reason, and in this case, he's secluded in order to study, or sometimes people lock themselves for any other reason. People should notice them. Wants to daven privately, as an example. But there's nothing you could say that there's a problem over here. Why isn't this person completely revealed? Meaning to say, why can't anybody see this individual? The answer, because they themselves closed themselves up and behind another door. They wanted to daven in a discreet manner. They wanted to learn Torah for 6 hours in a discreet manner, as an example. But could you compare that to someone else, another force, putting someone behind a wall in a cell, as an example? There's no comparison, because then it's not easy to get out. It's not easy to want to emancipate himself because those other forces did it, as opposed to the former, in this case, it's the person did it himself. So it's not a real confinement. That's the point. Conversely, when the person is in that cell, no one could see him. And what about people who are looking for him or her? It's a problem. For them, it's a problem. The child is looking for the mother. The child is looking for the father. So there's a problem for the people outside, but in essence, because we know that the person did it, and they did it with an objective and a goal, so they're not really locked in, and therefore, search harder. You'll notice, you'll be able to find them so much easier, because it's also them. In other words, the lockup itself is them. It's also an expression of them themselves. Someone knows the character, someone of this individual. He likes to serve Hashem in a discreet way, so when you see the doors locked, you don't see the person davening, but you understand a lot of the person because you know the character of the person, that he likes to be discreet. So the lockup itself is one of the expressions of the person that you're looking for. And if you want to appreciate that person, you're appreciating him because he's locked, because he locked himself up in a room, one way or another. Because you know that's his character. And you can appreciate it. It's coming from a very noble place. Wants to serve Hashem in a discreet way. Again, just as an example. So you can't see him, but eventually you will. You'll see the bigger picture. You'll see both sides. You'll see the way that his discreetness, and you'll see the way he expresses, not necessarily willingly, but in the end of the day, you'll see him himself as well, because it's all an expression of the same person. And then with this, we meant, and this gives the answer. It's not chas v'shalom that there's something out of, something's able to obscure or eclipse the emes Hashem. It's the Eibishter himself. It's the same midah. It's the same Hashem, which has 2 names, Hashem and Elokim, Hagadol HaGiber, because in the end of the day, it's an expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. So when you don't see it, it's because the Eibishter is established, which gives a different approach. In other words, you can find HaKadosh Baruch Hu because nothing is really obscuring HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's him himself is expressing himself one way, and then he expresses himself another way. So again, it's important to know that to appreciate this vort over here. It's a very, very important, very crucial approach to everything, to Elam Hazeh B'chalal, to everything that goes on in this world, people experience individually, collectively. It's all the Eibishter himself. The famous expression, the famous song. It's called the Dudale. The song goes, if it's do is doch good. If it's you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so it's good. Not, if I don't see it, but I know it's you. It's what a difference. When there's discipline coming from somebody, a loving parent or educator, so I know it's the discipline is also an expression of that educator, pedagogue, or parent. It's all you, and once it's you, so it's one expression. When there's one expression is when the expression of chesed, kindness, extension, and the other is discipline. But it's all you. Again, we gave 2 classes on this very page, 1 page. And to understand it and appreciate it, again, it's a click away. But one thing we left off with the Gemara, which definitely contributes to the understanding of this chapter. and which is, the Gemara says, so the Gemara says that there was a certain time when, unfortunately, negative forces have taken over the Beis HaMikdash. And the Chachamim wanted to take out the words Hagodel, Hagiber rather. They said, Goy merakdim beicholei, how do you say Hagiber? Where's the Eibishter's might? In other words, Gentiles. And not Stam Gentiles. Gentiles which came and destroyed the Hashem's personal home, his personal abode, the Beis HaMikdash itself. And meragdin, in a very disrespectful way, they're dancing in Hashem's chamber, literally translated. So Heichen Gvurasi. Where's Hashem's Gvura? Where's Hashem's might? Koyim are dancing in your own home, in the Beis HaMikdash. And they really wanted to take it away. Not because Chas v'Shalom, it was something that, in a context of rebellion, they just said, we ought to be honest. When we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it has to be something which resonates. Every term, every expression in a prayer ought to resonate with the one who's standing in prayer. And they felt this is not something which makes sense at the time. Be'ez Hashem, we will free ourselves from this galus and we'll put it back, as we will, Be'ez Hashem, re-experience Hashem's might, as Hashem did eventually. Even, you see, one Beis HaMikdash, the other, and so on, and many Yeshuas, particular individual deliverances, collective, Am Yisrael was delivered from their tsaris, from their adversaries, their opponents. Hashem came in with full might, and they said, we'll put it back one day, but right now, it doesn't make sense. Goyim, meragdin beicholei, it doesn't make sense to say the word, Gevurah Giber. But then they came to the conclusion, the Gemara continues and says, no, you leave the Gevurah in there. Why? Not because, we don't understand, and therefore just leave it in there because Chas v'Shalom, we're not going to take out a word which is not going to demonstrate and perhaps celebrate Hashem's might in our prayers we did till now, and it makes no sense, perhaps audacious to just take out a word of Gibber because we don't understand, therefore you're going to remove a word. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says, Hein Gvureisov. This is part of Hashem's Gvura. This is part of Hashem's might. They could have Gentiles, again, not Stam Gentile, but people who came to destroy the Beis HaMikdash, meragdin, disrespectfully, dancing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's personal chamber, and he could be silent. That's the Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the might of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's able to see that and let it happen. So they kept the Hagiber, which is very deep and very profound. And the reason why we bring this Gemara, it contributes so much to the message of this chapter. When you don't see the Gvura of HaKadosh, you don't see the Emes Hashem. If everything is the godly energy which is flowing, not as in this created being is just there as an extension of 6 days of creation, and there we saw and we identified. In other words, then it was easier to identify the total dependability of the Nivra to the Beirei, the created being, to the Creator, because it came from a state of nothing, total nothingness, and then it became a Yesh something, which means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is what brought it into being, literally from a state of Ayin to a state of Yesh. And this is just an extension of it. So there is the total dependability of the Nivra to the Beirei, but much more than that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mechadesh b'tovi b'chol yom tovim masverish. Every moment Hashem is creating. So the reason why it's there, it's only because right now the Dvar Hashem is Mehav Mechayim Mekayim, is giving it life and existence. And therefore, but it's really not. Even when it is, it's really not. Because what is it? Is the Dvar Hashem. So how can we look? How do you see the stone so real? Again, we mentioned the other day, you got to learn Tanya to realize and to extract this Medesh Tilim, Baal Shem Tov, Leila Mashem Baruch Nitza B'Shamayim, and so on, to say, it's not really the stone, it's really the Dvar Hashem. But why do you have to learn Tanya for that? Why do you, or the Medrash, or the Baal Shem Tov, wherever the Alter Rebbe extracted this information from? Why doesn't it Why doesn't it come into one? Why isn't the first appearance? It crash the person's eyes. In other words, his eyes, his sensory eyes, to see the emes Hashem, la'elam, which will unfold really when Mashiach will come. We spoke about this also. Malar es deis Hashem kamayim liyom mechasim. Like the unique terminology in the pasuk, like the water covers the ocean bed, meaning to say, first you'll see takal chayis, and then you'll look very well. You'll see the nivra similar to the water, the created creations which exist under the sea. In other words, within the water, which we explained again. This, not to repeat it again, one of the recent classes, that precise not only the world will be filled with the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the pasuk says, like the water covers the ocean floor, the ocean bed, the seabed. Which again, the precision over here in that terminology, because that's the way we're talking, going to see the world when Mashiach will come. But why don't we see it now? And the answer is, Heinen Gvurayso. That's another midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the midah of Gvura, which is the midah of Shem Elokim, which is again an expression of the Shem Elokim. Plurality. Remember, we say the Elokim within HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, which is mind-boggling. In the source of this is already the idea of divisiveness, plurality, not to see, to see evidently the elokus, the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is naturally expressed by the Shem Havai, and that's why Shem Havai is Shem Ha'etzem, because it's a transparent name, or a name which is transparent and allows the elokus, the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to come through, as opposed to Shem Elokim. But at the end of the day, Hein Gvurei Sov, it's the same Gvura, it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem has a way of expressing himself in Godel, and Hashem has a way of expressing himself in Giber. It's the same Hashem. So do we understand the Godel of Hashem? Could anybody say, oh, I understand perfectly the Gdul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The kindness means to say the ability of the Eibishter to extend himself in such an infinite, and again, such an expression of infinity, to create something from nothing which no one could understand, no one could perceive, no one could comprehend. Certainly no one could do that. To create something from nothing doesn't exist. From total nothingness doesn't exist. You sow a kernel into the ground, and the kernel would spoil into the ground, and you have a whole bushel of grain, wheat or barley. Yeah, you started with that kernel. To create something from nothing completely doesn't exist. So it doesn't exist, nor we could comprehend it. So we don't have any understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed, the Eibishter's, the Shem Hashem. So too we have no understanding in the Gevurah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it is and it's not, in the same meaning to say that it appears the way it appears, perhaps even unjustifiably, because what's going on? It's only the Dvar Hashem, so why do we see it the way it is? Well, that's the midah of the Gevurah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You don't understand the chesed, you don't understand, we can't comprehend the Gevurah, but they're both midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're both expressions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in the end of the day, this is a godly expression, and that's God. This is God, and that's God. And they work in with synthesis, the two midas, and therefore it's easy to find in the end of the day the emes Hashem La'olam, which eventually will become the normal Mashiach. What comes because it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a purpose that He created. Again, we know the purpose. We spoke about it many times. That if we only saw the Dvar Hashem, that we'd never be able to have Hashem's master plan in establishing this world as a dira b'tachtenim, a dwelling place for Himself in tachtenim, via the tachtenim. In other words, the Yid himself should come and try to seek and find HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the parameters of Elam Haza, which again, namely via the Gevurah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because everything would be apparent. There wouldn't be Aveda, there wouldn't be tachtenim on the onset. In other words, there wouldn't be a whole phenomenon of a hell and v'hester, concealment, cover-up of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because everything would be golden, everything would be revealed. So where's the Aveda? Where's the service? It would be like Gan Eden. And they didn't want it to look like Gan Eden. They wanted Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lislei Dira B'Tachtenim, a dwelling place in an inferior world, and Tachtenim itself is a makeup because there's Gevurah which covers up and conceals and obscures the Emes Hashem. So then you come into a world, you don't see the Emes Hashem, and you have to megal, you have to reveal it, primarily through learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and so on, and eventually we megal, revealing the Lukus in the entire world. So there's a master plan, but in the end of the day, the Gevurah is also HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's inconceivable, just like the Chesed. The ability to create Me'ayil Yesh is inconceivable. But what do we know from this? It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's see it in the text. Just like this, there's no. It's not within reach, not within the ability of no intellect of any created being to appreciate, to perceive as creator. So too, we can't appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu's characters, because at the end of the day, Hashem and His midas are one. You can never understand and totally or appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, perceive HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can't appreciate thoroughly Hashem's midas. You can't be masi. You can't perceive Hashem's midas. So he starts. First he starts about the Hashem himself, and then he goes down to the midas, and then he breaks down between these two midas. You can't understand chesed, you can't understand gvura. Okay, just like it's impossible for any intellect of any created being to perceive and to appreciate the character of Hashem's gdula, greatness, chesed, which is yichelis, livri, yeshmiayin, the ability to create something from nothing, which again is an expression of Hashem's chesed, the yeshmiayin phenomenon, creating something from nothing, and to give it life, like this olam chesed, Yibana, the world was created with Hashem's chesed. The Bereshis Boralikim, the Sarma Moris, Nivra Ha'elam, from a state of Ayin to a state of Yesh, is the Chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chesed in this context is not only the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed us into His master plan, but simply it comes from Chesed. It comes from the ability, the Keich, the Ein Seifi, the infinite Keich, the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which has the ability to create in a manner of ex nihilo. And no one could understand it. No one could thoroughly appreciate it. We can't appreciate it at all, for that matter. So too, kach mamish, in the very same fashion, it's not within the ability of the human mind to appreciate and perceive the character of Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is midas hatzimtzum, which is the expression, the character of confinement, of contraction. Contracting, preventing the extension of this life force and energy from Hashem's Gedula, greatness, chesed, which is the energy which creates mi'ayin liyesh, from descending and revealing itself on creation, to give them life and to give them existence in a revealed manner, in a manner of manifestation. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu prevents this energy to be manifest within creation. That's the midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we can't understand the original chesed, the ability, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's extension of this, which has infinite character, which we can't understand it. It creates me'ayin liyesh, from something to nothing, from nothing to something. We can't perceive it, so we cannot perceive the other midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the midah of gvura, the midah of discipline, the midah of contraction, the midah of concealment, preventing that very chesed from being revealed on creation, and again, in a way of gilui, in an overt manner of leibki'im. This is part of the midah of the gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu behester pani, in a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's face, the gilui, the revelation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the state of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's state of expression, is covered, is concealed, is obscured. Shachayis mistater beguf hanivra. The energy hides in the body of the created being. Uki'ilu guf hanivru davar b'fnei atzmei. And what does it appear? That this creation is something on its own. You don't see the Dvar Hashem. That's the midah of Gvura HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's not something like, what's wrong? We got to figure out what's wrong. There's nothing. It's something uncomfortable to a great extent, especially someone looking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seeking HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when there's Helen Behester, there's a famous David HaMelech in Tehillim says, "Ochim atokil mistater." It causes deep pain and deep anguish by a human being, which is searching God and seeking God, and is meant to do so, because the point is to find the Elokus, to find it, discover the reality of the emes Hashem la'elam, to connect with elam, that we should be able to see the emes. And when we don't, it's very painful. And David HaMelech laments that Ochin ato kel mistater, your God which hides. Sometimes there's a lot of gvura. A lot of times there's a lot of gvura which bewilders the Eved Hashem, someone who's serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu, or Yidden collectively. We don't, as we saw it, it wasn't just it was covered, but it was beyond covered. He expressed himself in very difficult manners. Goyim Merakdin Beichali, iconically in the Gemara, and unfortunately, Yidden over the long history experienced much of this midah, unfortunately, which is again the plea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of David HaMelech, or that tefillah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, beseeching Hashem, Ochinato kel mistater, your God which is mistater, you're covered. But with David HaMelech, within that statement, was also something which was comforting as well. David HaMelech was saying it's ato kel mistater, that when you see a Helam v'Hester, and you see a covering, a concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know it's ato, it's you, Hashem. So there's a lamentation, the complaint, even the expression of the anguish, and the beseech and the implorer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But together with that, David HaMelech is also denoting that it's ato, it's you. And once we know it's you, we just mentioned in that melody, as says, do is doch good, because as long as we know it's you. But in this case, we're not talking about chas v'shalom gvura in the context of real Helam v'Hester. In other words, something which, unfortunately, as an overdose, so to say, of this gvura, which caused catastrophe in Elam Hazeh, in the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his chosen nation, which we did see it in our history, individually and collectively. But here we're not talking about that per se, but just to appreciate that vart. That it's you, which is the Helam v'Hester also comes from you. It's Gevura. And when you look at the stone and you see the stone, you say, why don't I see the Dvar Hashem, which is Mahav Machai the stone? I don't see the Dvar Hashem Mahav Machai the stone because it's expression of the Gevura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's an expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. That the Eibishter has a midah which establishes that the Gufa Nivir should be Kilu Gufa Nivir, Dabar Fnei Atzmei, to look at it as an independent idea. What's the reason? We spoke about this reason. Again, we just mentioned it again. The Eibishter wanted a Dira B'Tachteini. The Eibishter wanted the Yid should come into a world which, on the surface, Elokus is covert, not overt, that we are Megala. The Yid is revealing is revealing the Elokus. He wanted it in Tachteini, which is again could only be established when there is the Gevurah, and he wanted it via the Tachteini, via the Yid, that the Yid himself, so to say, through the other side of the coin, and to pierce his way through, to navigate the Shem Elikim, or this Gevurah, in order to find the Elokus, and eventually the Megala, to reveal the Emes Hashem Laila. And that will come to full fruition when Mashiach will come. Malor is Deis Hashem, Kamam Li Mechasi. Ayin B'Ayin Yira, the eye will be able to see B'Shuv Hashem Tziyin. V'ro Kol Basar, even the flesh will be able to appreciate. V'ro Kol Basar, as the pasuk says, the Elokus, the godliness. Even the flesh, the physical flesh, will appreciate godliness because Elokus will be begodly, Elokus will be revealed. But when you look at the Nivra, when you look at the stone, again, every created being, but particularly when you're talking about the Gufa Nivra, particularly when you're talking about it's every created being, but again, we're just using the same in this example, the stone. You look at the stone, you see the Gufa Davar Fnei Atzmei doesn't demonstrate Elokus, doesn't say, you know what, really I am? I'm not the way I appear, this solid stone, lifeless, meaningless, maybe even. No. I am the Dvar Hashem. My whole existence is the Dvar Hashem. Why isn't the stone demonstrating that? Well, that's part of the Eibishter's Gevurah. That he creates creation in a way that creation appears that it's a Davar B'Fnei Atzmei ve'enei Pashtas Achayis Varuchnis, and that it appears in a way that it's not demonstrative, that it's just an extension of the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the spirituality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the extension of the ray from the sun, which again is very evident that it's really part and parcel of the sun. Not like that, but it appears as something distinct on its own. And he goes on, he says, and understandably, the truth of the matter, it's not. Because the whole reason why it exists is just because Hashem is giving it chayas now. So in essence, it really isn't. As we mentioned, we use this term, and even when it is, it really isn't. It's not. Emes ein adav. It's not a davar f'nei. It is as the extension of the ray of the sun, which is really only about the sun. In this case, it's only the Dvar Hashem. This is the Gvura. This is the might of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is part of the expression. Again, he uses the Lashon Heining Gvuresa, which is again associated with that Gemara. He says this is part of the might of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, they're an extreme where we saw overt Gvura to the extent, again, it wasn't just creation appeared without demonstrating its emes, but it was beyond that. Goyim eragdi beichalei. The Gentiles are dancing inappropriately in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chamber. This is Hashem's might that He allows it to happen. The Alter Rebbe quotes the Heining Gvurayis over here because in this context as well. This is the Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That He has the ability to condense the energy and the ruchnius and the spiritual flow of energy, which flows from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, the spirit of Hashem's mouth, kaviyachol, naturally, asar ma'amoris, Hashem's words, ulastire, and to conceal it, in a way that the makeup, the body of creation should not be annulled. In essence, it should be, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu established that it should not be annulled and completely subdued in a way that it should lose itself in its even external appearance to the Dvar Hashem, because it's only the Dvar Hashem. Hashem says, no, I'm going to make it look exactly the way it looks. It's impossible that any created being to be able to perceive what's behind, or what is this concealment, this contraction. That in simultaneous, this entity, this creation, should be created right now, in the same time that it's being concealed from what it truly is. So it's mind-boggling that right now Hashem is giving its energy. So what is it? It's the energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's in the same time, simultaneous. The Eibishter is expressing the Gvura to that the stone should appear the way it is. And again, every part of creation. And therefore it's impossible to understand, it's impossible to appreciate, to perceive that there should be the tzimtzum, it should work together simultaneously, that the Guf HaNivra is just really creating Ma'ayin Liyash. You should only see the Ayin, you should only see the Dvar Hashem, which is Mahava Machayet, which is giving life and existence. And that goes together with that Mehutzat Midat Tzimtzum, which allows creation to appear the way it is. Impossible to understand. Just like you can't understand the whole phenomenon of creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating Me'ayin Liyash ex nihilo. And so too we can't understand the Gvura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because they're both midas of Hashem. Hashem is infinite. Hashem is inconceivable. Hashem is we can never appreciate a nivra, a creation, could appreciate creator. Hashem is infinite. Everything which exists within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by stark contrast, is the very default of creation. So we can't understand Hashem himself. We cannot understand Hashem's characters, midas, which is Hashem and Likim, Gdula, Gvura. And just like, again, as he breaks it down, you can't understand the Gdula, you can't understand the Gvura. But they're working simultaneous. So what does it tell us? Okay, so we have this brackets over here, which is interesting. We'll look forward to speaking about it this coming week. The Rebbe starts a brackets in the middle of the chapter 4, and it ends in the end of chapter 5. The Rebbe, again, there's different versions over here, but we're going to go into it. Basically, we will be able to appreciate the end of Dalid, why it's placed into a brackets, because it goes into like a deeper dimension of this whole idea of Chesed and Gvura. Bez Shem will get to it, but what do we see over here? What we could infer over here? That when you look at Ilam Hazeh, so it looks very real, and everything generally in Ilam Hazeh looks very real. The emes is that there is nothing real in it. In other words, it's just an expression of a Kodesh Baruch Hu's Gvura, but what is it, Bepayil? When we say that Hashem's Gvura covers up on it, it doesn't mean Hashem's Gvura cancels the Shem Havaya, cancels the expression of Chesed. It just allows the Nivra creation to look and appear the way it is. So the first thing is, when we look at the Gvura, we say, oh, that's the Gvura, that's you. That's Achinata. It's you. But together with that, we know and we infer, and this is what we take from this very Pedic, that in the end of the day, what's the real mitzias of the Nivra? It's a Lukus. It's Hashem. And not 70-80% of it, 100% of it. And right now, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu pulls back that energy, it would cease to exist, literally disappear. So what is it? Is a Lukus. And therefore it's easier to navigate, it's easier to do our Aveda. Again, starting from our learning Tanya and doing mitzvahs, which generally mitzvahs, again, taking the physical, and establishing that the physical is not just physical, and this is the way kan hoya kan nimtza, this is the way it is, but we say no, that it's created for a purpose, and we refine it and elevate it and sublimate the davar agashmi via the kima mitzvahs. And more so, we take we have the gain through our learning Torah and doing mitzvahs about the awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ourselves, starting from ourselves. That what? Ki Hashem hu Elikim. That Hashem is Elikim. And because Hashem Elikim, I'm already there. Hashem is right here. I'm together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I reveal it again and make it clear by myself. And eventually I make it clear in my surroundings, society. And eventually the entire world appreciates this emes Hashem la'olam, the connection of Hashem, and you say the revelation, the manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'olam, of the world itself, which on its own covers up of HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'olam, l'shen ha'olam v'hasta, like the Gemara says. It conceals over the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu associated with Midah Gvura, but we establish more and more, but we know, because at the end of the day, the emes is that it is about the Dvar Hashem. And it's solely about the Dvar Hashem. So we reveal more and more till we're zeich, like we say in Aleinu. If you ever thought, we speak about these different quotes of Aleinu l'shabech, v'al ki nekavelecha, yakiru v'yedu kol yeshiv yisevel, ki l'cha tichra kol berach, tishava kol lashon, v'ayashem l'melech al kol ha'oret, the entire world, the entire land will be filled with the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The reign of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the other pasuk which we quote from Yeshaya, v'mol ha'oretz deis Hashem, the land will be full and saturated with the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kamayim liyom mechasim, like the water covers the seabed. Have a wonderful night.